Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship, of course, but today, Dennis Geelen, who is the founder and chief difference maker over at Zero In, he is going to talk to us about solar entrepreneurship as well, because he has a course as well as a new book that's just about to launch. And so actually, when you're listening to this now, it's probably just hitting the newsstands. Is it newsstands that books hit? The bookstore, I guess. That's really what it would be, or Amazon. So welcome to the show, Dennis. I really appreciate you coming down today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Lance.
Okay, so let's get into it right away here. As a guy who works with a lot of entrepreneurs, who's an entrepreneur himself, what do you think are the three key things that every entrepreneur needs to know?
Yeah, well, I would say right off the bat, I was very naive when I started my own solopreneur practice. So I quickly learned there was a few things that I had to learn right off the bat. So number one would be niching down. If you try and be too general, you try to appeal to too many people, you end up appealing to nobody. People want the expert. Whether you're a consultant like I am, or whether you're selling a product or a service, it's got to be appealing to a specific group of people and solving a specific problem. Otherwise, what's the appeal, right?
Yeah, as our friends to the south of the border in the U.S. would say, the riches are in the niches. Right?
There you go. So that's number one, is be the expert and niche down. Number two, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. There's so many people that see the dollar signs or see the glamour and they think, oh, I'll just start my own business and tomorrow I can quit my job and the money will be rolling in. And to be honest, I had thoughts like that in the beginning, and I soon had to learn, no, it's like building relationships. It takes time. You got to build trust. You got to put in the work and you got to be consistent. There's no such thing as an overnight success. So that's number two. And number three is, regardless of how good your product, your service, your offering is, you need to know how to market and sell it. And those were two things that I had no background, no experience in before starting my own business. So my eyes were really opened to how much time, effort, how much art and science goes into marketing and selling whatever your product, your service, your offering is.
Yeah, very true. It seems like those who have the gift of being a great salesperson, they can sell kind of anything. It almost doesn't matter what it is that they're hawking. They can find success, right?
Yeah.
As long as the product or the service is delivering on the promises. But there's little replacement for good sales. And then I'm gonna, obviously I wear a marketing hat most days, and so definitely a big fan of good marketing for sure.
Yeah.
So we're going to dig into those a little bit more, but I'm really curious about your backstory, because you were a corporate guy for a number of years. You had a great career, and then you got laid off, I think you said at the age of 43.
That's
and
right.
That kind of shook up your world. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing, and then what made you decide to actually become an entrepreneur as opposed to just getting back out there with the resumes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say prior to getting laid off, I was one of those people that was a follow the script guy. I was a follow the rules, very risk averse. We're all told you go to school, you get a good job, you buy a house, you get married, you put away a certain percentage of your money, and then by 65 you retire, and that's when you get some freedom, right? But I completely subscribe to that, and I would say for the most part I was pretty happy. I was content with that, and I worked hard. I was working my way up through the corporate ladder. I ended up working in senior management in different industries and different companies. And I thought, wow, this is great. Until at the age of 43, as you said, for the first time in my life, I was laid off. Never had that happen to me before. Never even came close. I was always a go-to, a high achiever, very secure, or so I thought. And then once I was laid off, it really shook my world. Boy, is that as comfortable? Is that as safe as I thought it was? Is that script the way everybody has to do it, it really started changing my mind on things. And I would say for a couple of years leading up to getting laid off, I did start to wonder a little bit, what would it be like to bet on myself? Would there be more to life? Would there be more purpose, more passion if I did something? But because I was so risk averse, I never really entertained the idea.
Yeah.
And then when I was laid off, that's when the idea all of a sudden came to the forefront and said, what if I bet on myself? What if I gave it a year and really tried to do my own thing? I mean, at best, it works.
Yeah.
And boy, how gratifying would that be? At worst, I would have no regrets. I would know I tried it and I put a whole year into it. And if it didn't work out, no problem. I can go back into the corporate world. But boy, would I learn a ton? Would I grow a lot, both as a person, as an individual, and within my business smarts? I'd have to learn sales and marketing and networking and how to brand myself. And boy, what an experience it would be if I did it. So that's what really kind of jolted me out of that risk averse, safe version of Dennis and really let entrepreneur Dennis step into the forefront.
Yeah. And so through that transition, I mean, it's a difficult one. I remember when I first held out my consulting shingle after I left my place of employment as well. I thought I was, had some expertise there that I could apply. And so I was using a lot. I started doing management consulting. And so I was working with organizations that were struggling with their business model, their business plan, functionality within the business, and so on. And so those are all the things that I had been doing. And so it was just natural to apply those skills in other organizations. Did you do the same thing where you took what you were doing in your corporate world to then pull that into your business and wrapped, a service around that and a brand around that? Or did you do something completely different?
No, that's what I did. I did it very poorly. I said, I was so naive. Originally, I just billed myself or marketed myself as a business consultant. Okay. And what do you need? I'll help you. You want help with strategy. You want help with operations. You want help with efficiencies. You want help with your customer experience. You want to be more innovative. Hey, I've done all those things. And this is where I was saying you need to niche down. Yeah. Because I just billed myself as a general business consultant, that didn't appeal to anybody. Well, what exact why would I hire you? What problem are you solving for me? And why are you the expert? And do you have credibility there? I just assumed, well, I have got 20 plus years of senior leadership experience. People will want me. And, but none of my potential clients knew me, in my background and whatever. So yeah, that is what I did, but I did it very poorly. Yeah. I just kind of took what I know and tried to sell it to any other, company out there.
Yeah. So how did you figure out how to niche down or where to niche down? Did you walk yourself through a bit of a process of identifying that, or did you just kind of fall into it because you started, something kind of clicked with one of the prospects that you were reaching out to, and so then that became kind of the angle that you started to pursue?
For me, it was an iterative process.
Okay.
I looked at, well, what are my passions? What are my skill sets? Where is there a market out there? What problem can I solve? And I tried 3 or 4 different things before I finally hit on one where I go, that one seems to kind of line up nicely with all 3 of those things. I've got the skill set, there's a market for it, and I'm passionate about it. But it did take me 3 or 4 different niches before I hit on the one that seemed to really be the one for me. Yeah. And then from there, I still had to learn a ton about, well, how do I brand myself and sell this and package it? And, but yeah, niching down for me was definitely an iterative process.
Okay. And so you niche down, you start to get some rhythm there then with what it is that you're really focused on, which is what then? How would you describe that side of your business?
Yeah, I've decided eventually it was, okay, it's medium-sized businesses I'll work with. Startups don't really need what I'm bringing.
Okay.
And large organizations already have people or departments that do this. And I'm specifically focusing on customer experience. In the beginning, that was the niche that really hit it off for me. So I'll help you design the customer experience for your medium-sized business that's really going to resonate with your potential customers.
Okay. And so then you start writing some books as well. I understand you have the 3 books already, and you had a 4th one that's coming out on September. What was it?
September 6th, the new one comes out. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And so the initial books that you're writing then, were those more geared around that customer experience expertise so that you could, hold that book up as, again, further evidence that you are an expert in what it is that you're training people?
Not right away. Actually, the first 2 books I wrote, I would say, were part of that iterative finding my niche process. They were not about customer experience. They were business consulting related, but they weren't customer experience specific. Once I nailed down, yes, customer experience is my niche, then I really had to make sure that people saw me as the expert and then built credibility. So I started doing all kinds of workshops. I started offering different types of customer experience engagements, whether that's working with your frontline staff, whether that was training your leadership team, whether that was designing what the journey should look like, really kind of defining what atmosphere you want your customers to feel. Like Starbucks is really designed around making it feel like you're in a European style cafe, or at least that's what the original customer experience of Starbucks was like, right? So what does your customer experience need to feel like? And I would have all kinds of processes and worksheets and things that I would take these companies through to help them design their specific customer experience. Once I really nailed that down and got all kinds of testimonials and all kinds of work under my belt, that's when I wrote my 3rd book, The Zero In Formula. And it was really about, how do you design a more customer-centric company that's also innovative? Because I believe those 2 things have to go together to be a truly long-term successful company. You're customer-centric and you're innovative. You put those 2 things together, and that's really where things start to explode. So it was not until I had all that stuff nailed down that I wrote that 3rd book, and that one really skyrocketed things.
Yeah. And so where do you think, if you had the ability to kind of put your finger on a moment in time, what was that breakthrough moment in which, you arrived at the place where now that this is where you were supposed to be, essentially, within your business? Because you were saying there's lots of iterations. Yeah. Or maybe you're not even there yet, like have you found that comfort point where it's like, yeah, okay, everything's working good. I'm recognizing.
With Zero In, I think it was, so I belonged to all kinds of different networking groups. This was pre-pandemic. I would go and meet on certain days of the week with different business groups and discuss things. And that was a big part of my iterative process as well. I would come prepared with a different elevator speech. I would try different things that I would say and see what would make people's eyes light up or make them want to find out more. When I came up with this quadrant. I called it the magic quadrant of CCI, customer centric and innovative. And I explained why you need to be in this top right quadrant and what that looks like. And I gave examples of companies that were in the other quadrants and why they eventually failed and so on. And when I started explaining that to people, eyes were lighting up. People wanted to know more. People were wanting to dive in. People were wanting to talk to me about it. And I went, oh, I'm onto something here. That was the beginning of new workshops. That was the beginning of new engagement material for consulting. And that was the beginning of the book. That's when I knew I'm onto something here.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because I find this in sales, just in general, when we coach some of our clients around that. And we actually discuss this moment in time in which you're sitting across the table from a prospect and you're having a conversation about what it is that you can do for them, and they lean in, right? Or you see a little twinkle in their eye, like they light up. They're really listening now. And it's that moment, that's the hook.
Yeah.
You've caught them, right? And it's like, okay, so what was that moment?
Yeah.
You have to remember that. And then that's what
Yeah.
we really leverage then
Yeah.
in the marketing, because everything that we're trying to do for marketing for clients is very much about bringing people to that moment where there's that almost an aha moment where it's like, I get it. I can see
Yeah.
exactly how you can help me and my business essentially.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that is such an important moment. And then as soon as you realize that, then it's like, okay, I got something here.
Oh, and my poor wife, I remember before I would go to networking meetings, I'd be like, hey, let me practice this little 30-second elevator. Let me explain this to you. And so she was my sounding board. And of course, over time, her eyes were not lighting up anymore because she had heard so much, but great feedback she would give me. And then I knew when I nailed it, when even her head kind of cocked for a second, went, oh, that's a bit interesting. I'd
Yeah.
said so many things to her, but this one sounded different. This one
Yeah.
was unique. This one got her going. And I remember when I started talking about this on different networking events and so on, all of a sudden people started reaching out to me. Hey, can we do a video together where you talk about that? I'd love to put that out to my audience. Hey, can you come on my podcast and talk about that? I think that's really interesting. I'm thinking, man, now instead of me having to go out and sell this idea, people are coming to me saying, hey, can you come share this idea with my audience? I thought, okay, I'm onto something here.
Yeah, totally. So how many years did it take from that aha moment, essentially, that you had, where it's like, okay, I got the angle now, I can sell this, to the point where things are just, it's coming in now, where you have that momentum. There's no more of that inertia. You've overcome it.
So I launched Zero in September of 2018.
Okay.
I was laid off in that August. It took me about a month to finally decide, yep, this is what I'm going to do. And I decided to go all in. I launched then. It wasn't until I would say late 2019 that things had clicked. It took me about a year to go through those iterations and really find my niche and get that aha moment.
Yeah.
By March of 2020, which we all
Perfect
know
timing.
was when the pandemic started. By then, things were clicking.
Yeah.
Probably I would say between November, December of 2019 and March of 2020, I was on a roll.
Yeah.
I had now lined up all kinds of different consulting clients. I was doing workshops like you wouldn't believe. I was being asked to speak at conferences, and I thought, man, this is it. I did it. And in those first couple months of 2020, I had already exceeded the revenue that I had brought in all of 2019.
Yeah.
Just because
Wow.
I had figured out that niche and I had got that aha moment and things. But then, of course, mid-March, the pandemic hits, and all of a sudden, those workshops all canceled. A lot of my consulting engagements on hold. Dennis, we got to see what this pandemic's going to mean for our business. We got to cut spending. Unfortunately, we can't do that consulting with. So that was a huge hit. But that is where I decided to write the book. I said, okay, I'm onto something. It's working. People's eyes are lighting up. They want these workshops. They want this consulting engagement. I can't do them because of the pandemic at the moment. So I've been given this time. What do I do with this time? And that's where I decided now is the perfect time. I've got this break. I just made a bunch of money, so I've got a cushion. Let me put my head down and write this book. And that's how I spent the first few months of the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah. And in a way, probably out of anybody that I've talked to over the course of this podcast, that was probably super opportunistic in the sense, because if you hadn't had that break and the business just kept on going, you wouldn't have had the opportunity, probably the time to be able to find to do it, the book.
Writing a book is not a small feat. So I was very thankful, very blessed to have those several months to put my head down. Like I said, the first two books I wrote were not great. It was more me trying to figure things out. It was me doing a lot of it on my own, completely self-editing, self-publishing. And this one, I decided, no, I've got the time, I've got the money. Let me really do this right. Interviewed all kinds of people, talked to all kinds of different publishers and authors to really figure out what do you do here. And because of that time, I was able to put out a really good book. It came out in September of 2020, right when things were starting to open back up again. So again, the timing for publishing the book was perfect, and that just got the business rolling right back like it was before the pandemic hit. So
yeah. And so then you spend the last couple of years then working the business, the zero in, and as part of that period of time, you decide that you have another book in you that you want to get out. And so this is launching you into another area of specialty, and that's solopreneur, courses and the book and education and mentoring and so on.
Yeah.
So
a funny thing happened. So I would say late last year, I decided, okay, time to write another book. Once you've got one, write another one. I actually started writing another completely different book. It was aimed at similar audience, medium-sized businesses. What do you do to kind of take your business to the next level? But what I was finding was, because when I started Zero In, I was journaling my journey on social media. I would post about it on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I've learned. Here's the mistakes I've made. Here's what I'm doing next. And I would ask all kinds of questions of people. And that really started to create a bit of an audience for people that were maybe itching to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So around the time I was starting to write that other business book, I was noticing, man, I'm getting a ton of people reaching out to me, mostly on LinkedIn, asking to pick my brain, asking, hey, how did you do that? Hey, do you think this would work? Hey, I want to do what you're doing. Can we chat for a few minutes? And I went, man, maybe there's another niche there for me. Maybe now that I've built this solopreneur consulting business, I can also help other solopreneurs do the same thing. So I pivoted and decided, no, I'm going to write a completely different book. I'm going to write a book for other people that want to become solopreneurs and do what I did. So that's the new book that's coming out. It's called The Accidental Solopreneur. And just to give myself a bigger challenge, I decided, instead of just writing it as a regular how-to nonfiction book like the Zero In Formula, I'm going to make this one a fictional parable. I'm going to have characters. I'm going to have drama. I'm going to have, all the stuff I've never done before. So again, I had to work with a different editor. I had to learn from different people. I had to learn how to write good fiction, how to draw the reader in and make a compelling story. So that was a lot of fun, a big challenge, but pretty exciting to be able to know that I've done that. And there's a big audience of people waiting for that book to come out.
So you strike me as then somebody who does not like to take the easy road, because you could have rinsed and repeated what you were doing before. Yeah. Now you've taken off and you're targeting a totally different audience. And you also decided to do a completely different style of book. So talk to me a little bit about that. Is that just something that has always been part of you, where you just really like to tinker and try new things? Or is this something that's
I like to learn? I don't know if I would necessarily say I like to take the hard road. There can be lots of satisfaction when you do, but that's not my intention. My intention is always, oh man, I love to learn. So originally it was, hey, I want to learn how to write a book. So my first 2 books was really just, hey, I learned the process. They weren't great books. They didn't sell a ton, but I learned what's involved. And that really helped me when I sat down and did the Zero In Formula. Now I knew what was involved. Let me do it correctly. So now that I had done that, I thought, well, what else can I learn? Let's throw fiction in there. I want to learn how to be a good fiction writer. And I've been soaking up as much as I can about writing and copywriting and hooks and drawing people in and building suspense and all that kind of stuff. And obviously my editor was a major help in that, and correcting me along the way and how to start chapters correctly and how to end them correctly and how to create tension. But yeah, I loved the process of learning how to do that was what kept me going.
Yeah. That lifelong search for learning, right? Like it's just it's infectious. Once you start and you really get passionate about anything, it's so easy to see things that have an interest, right? And then you just start exploring deeper and deeper into that. So now I'd imagine there's a lot of people listening who have never written a book, who would love to write a book, myself included, actually. So I've thought about writing a book many times, and for me, it's just I think there is a whole pile of inertia there where it's just like I just can't get started. What would be your top advice that you would give anybody who is thinking about writing? How do you actually write a book?
Yeah. I think the advice I'm about to give can apply to many things, but instead of thinking of it as I'm going to write a book, which seems huge and daunting, I like to think of it as this week, I'm going to write a chapter.
Okay.
And if I can break it down into small chunks, then it was okay. If I'm going to write a chapter this week, today, I'm going to try and write 1,000 words, right? And then you break it down. And how many times do we write small articles or posts on social media? Well, we do that all the time. Well, then that's all you're setting out to do today. I'm going to write 500 words or 1,000 words today. And if I've done that, great. At the end of the week, I'll have a chapter. At the end of 10 weeks, I'll have 10 chapters. And then, yes, there's lots of editing and rewriting and other work that goes into it. But the bulk of the writing, you can break down and get done as long as you're diligent and consistent and kind of set aside some time and space for writing. If the information's already there, if you already know what you're writing about and who you're writing for, it's the writing process that you just have to make easier for yourself.
It's like that old saying, right? Like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so, reduce it down to its smallest steps, right?
Yep. It doesn't seem nearly as daunting if it's today I'm going to write 500 words. That sounds a lot easier than this year I'm going to write a book, right?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about what you're doing with your course, the Solopreneur Playbook, I think is what the course is called, right?
Yeah.
And so talk to us a little bit about what people are going to learn through the course as well, because I think it would be really interesting for a lot of our listeners.
Yeah. When I was starting out with Zero In, I really felt like I had 3 different options. Just dive in and figure this all out on my own, which I tried, and I made all kinds of mistakes, and I found out, boy, that's actually more expensive and it's going to take me even longer. That's option 1. Option 2 is, okay, I can read a bunch of books or watch a bunch of YouTube videos on how to do this stuff. I'm still doing it on my own, but I've got at least some experts guiding me.
Yep.
Well, man, that can be overwhelming because there's a million business books. There's a million YouTube channels out there with all the kind of, which ones do I read? Which ones do I watch? How do I sift this together for me and my business? So that became overwhelming. And option 3, it felt like was, well, hire a coach or a mentor who's been there to help me. Well, boy, that can be expensive if you're starting this and you don't have the capital to put into it. So what I wanted to do was put together a course that was option 4. It was, you don't have to read every book. You don't have to try and figure this out on your own, and you don't have to hire an expensive advisor. Let me just tell you my 6-step process, walk you through. I even created a workbook that helps people do all of this that they download, they get as part of the course, and I walk them through it. And I give all kinds of examples from my story, from other people, so that they can see what works, what doesn't work for them. And I've priced it low so they don't see this as, man, this is going to be an expensive, long learning process for me. I wanted to kind of give back to somebody who was in my position 4 years ago and answer all these questions that I constantly get through email, through DMs, through Zoom calls. And instead of me just answering every email or getting on all these Zoom calls, here's a comprehensive course. It's still only like maybe an hour and a half long. Do it on your own. Here's all the resources. Here's all my answers to the questions, and follow it in this order. And you're going to save months, maybe years off your journey and avoid all the mistakes I made when I was starting Zero In.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is one of the things that I love also about what you've been doing in terms of taking your knowledge and packaging it into different types of products that you can start to generate a bit of a recurring revenue model on too.
Yeah.
And so do you cover some of that as well in the playbook?
Yeah. So actually, I'll tell you, the playbook is 6 steps. And that step we just talked about is step number 6.
Yeah.
Once you've reached a certain point, now you can build assets that you can sell over and over and make recurring revenue.
Yeah.
But a mistake a lot of people make is they try and do that first.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. First of all, what's your niche? You got to be seen as the expert in something. That's step 1. So in the course, we talk about how to find your niche, and there's all kinds of resources for building your niche and then creating a niche statement to explain it to people, like I was doing at all these networking events. Step 2 is build credibility. Just because you've niched down and call yourself the expert at this problem for this specific group of people, where's the proof, right? So how do you build that credibility? And there's all kinds of exercises. And what does a good testimonial look like? Because some of the advice is just go out and get testimonials. Well, some testimonials, even though they say good things, really aren't that helpful. Hey, work with Dennis, highly recommend.
Yeah.
Well, why? What problem did he solve? What results did you get? What were the benefits? Why is Dennis different than working with somebody else? Your testimonials should say that. So build credibility is step 2. Yeah. Step 3 is learn how to package your offering. So many solopreneurs I see just end up trading their time for money. You want to work with me? It's $100 an hour.
Yeah.
Well, now you've basically just told your client, I'm trading my time for money, and here's how much it's going to cost you per hour. Now that's all they're going to think about. Ooh, Dennis just billed me 6 hours. Couldn't he have done that in 4? Right? You don't want your client to go to that mindset. It doesn't matter if you're a fitness instructor, you're a copywriter, you're a consultant, you're a coach. Have a proprietary process. Learn how to package what you do into your own proprietary process and sell it at a fixed price. So in the course, I go through, well, what does that look like for you? How do you do that? And here's how I did it. And here's all the steps to getting there. And once you've done that, and for me, like I said, that was an iterative process. And I explain this to people in the course. You may have to iterate several times before you get that package, that offering. Now, how do you sell it? Learning how to sell is step number 4. Because even if you've got all that and you don't know how to sell, it doesn't matter. No customers, no business.
Yeah.
Once you get there, lots of people might stop. Hey, I'm fine. I've got a package. I'm selling this at a pretty good price. I'll just keep doing this over and over again. But if you don't want to be constantly working, now you need to build an audience so that you can sell these resellable assets. And those are steps 4 and 5. How do you build an audience? Whether it's a podcast, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's social media, how do you really generate followers so that when you put out a course, when you put out a book, when you put out a worksheet, when you put out a cheat sheet, when you put out some tool, whatever, people are there lining up to buy it. That's the 6-step playbook. I advise people to do it in this order. These ones are probably iterative, but don't do it out of order. Don't start a podcast before you even know what your niche is, right? Don't try and build an audience before you even know who you're talking to or what problem you solve. Like, do it in this order, and you're going to save yourself all kinds of time, money, and stress and heartache. Trust me, I was there.
Yeah, completely. Right. And what I love about what you've done here is you distilled it down into a process, right? And a system. And this is one of the things that I've definitely learned over the years of my entrepreneurial journey, but also talking to a lot of entrepreneurs about theirs as well, is there's a lot of people talk about this valley of death for businesses, which is usually the first 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I forget the exact number, but it's like 85-90% of small businesses fail within that first 5 years. Yep. And so it's just, it's a boneyard of broken businesses. And what has happened usually for those businesses that get into that 5th year is they've hit a bit of a stride, and they have been at it enough that they start to get those referrals coming in or the repeat business and so on. And so if you can survive those first 5 years, things do get a lot easier. But in order to get through those 5 years, so what sets the successes away from apart from the failures is it's oftentimes about the systems and identifying, okay, well, what is my product? And just going through like kind of the steps that you had there and where's the value added in it? How do I start to sell it, right? Package it up. And the ones that have become wildly successful are the ones that then figure out some sort of mechanism of like you were talking about before, about packaging it into something that can be a recurring revenue kind of model. And so I love what you're doing here, because this is something that is going to set anybody who follows those steps. And if they can stay, on task and stay within that system, they are going to win as long as they have a product or a service that, the market does want. You can't do it if you don't have the product, but they're going to win. They're going to get through that 5 years. And it's just how they leverage or implement the strategy is going to determine how successful they are. But
exactly,
they will have success.
That's probably the primary reason why the very first question you asked me was, what are the 3 top things? Playing the long game. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. Like you don't go from step 1 to step 6 in a month, right? Steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 might take you 6 months of iterating before you even figure it out. And then building an audience could be another 6 months to a year itself before you're ready to put out a product that people are ready to buy, right? It's you got to be consistent. You got to understand this is a long-term play. But if you do it, you're no longer one of those statistics that failed in year 5. You made it because you followed a process. You were consistent. Yes, you have to iterate at times, but you've got this high-level roadmap that you're following, and you're following it in a slow, methodical process.
Yeah. So now here's an obvious question that I just have to ask. So I apologize in advance, Dennis, but you were building an audience, a tribe, and the products and everything around the medium-sized businesses. And now you've pivoted into another niche. It's related, but it's another niche there that you're now building out some products for. Question for you is, are you deviating from the things that you are actually trying to teach people to do, or is there some strategic reason as to why you're making that shift?
Yeah, I definitely questioned myself in the beginning. Ooh, is this smart? I've built an audience, I've built a community, I've built a business aimed at medium-sized businesses around customer experience and innovation. Now, all of a sudden, I'm doing something different. But I thought, well, hold on a second. This is the playbook. You start with one niche, you follow it all the way to step 6, and now you can go back to step 1 and do it again for a different niche. Well, if I'm going to be telling people that, I should do it myself first. So I'm actually following my own playbook, just in a different niche, and it's working. I mean, look at Amazon. They started off as an online bookstore. Right? They wanted to get really good at selling online. Eventually, their plan was to be able to sell all kinds of stuff online, but we got to start with a niche. My job or my goal is to consult and coach businesses. That's a very broad term. Well, I started with medium-sized businesses in this problem. I'm still coaching or consulting businesses. I've just gone back now and said, now let me pick another niche and follow and do the same thing. So I'm still kind of within the same industry, coaching, consulting. But I've gone all the way through the playbook before I go back and add another niche and leverage what I've already done. And it's working. I mean, I'm getting people booking coaching calls with me. I'm getting people buying my online course. I've got all kinds of people who've already pre-ordered my book that hasn't even come out yet. So it's working. And it's just a matter of staying consistent and playing the long game in this new niche.
So here's another question for you then. And I'm really curious about this because I think a lot of us, myself included, and so I'm asking this more for myself, I think, than anybody else who's listening, but I do get distracted because I have this thirst for knowledge. I have this
Mhm.
thirst for learning. I have this desire to just try different things. And so I kind of get bored sometimes when I'm building, X for a long duration. And I kind of feel like finding something else that reignite that passion.
Yeah.
How do you consult with people or coach people on identifying when it's actually advisable to start looking at that second niche? So like you said, you went through the steps to build your first one, and then now you jumped in and you're building your second one,
Yep.
your second niche, related but different niches. How would you coach somebody on that when it's like, okay, I'm getting antsy, I'm feeling like I'm ready to do something different? It's like, no,
Right.
stay the course, because you still have work to be done over here,
Right.
versus tackle another niche.
Yeah. I mean, you could stay within a niche and always tweak, always add, always get better, and you would learn and grow through that. But like you, hey, I want a new, bigger challenge. So I have to ask myself, do I have unfinished business over here yet? Have I gone through all the 6 steps of the playbook? And am I seeing success? And if the answer is no, I'm not, okay, then do I drop that niche and start a new one? Or do I learn, figure this one out? Maybe I picked a bad market. Maybe I don't have a great offering and I do have to drop it or I have to tweak it. But do I have unfinished business? And if I feel like, no, you know what, I've done a pretty good job there. Now's a good time. I've got money coming in. I've got followers. I've got a good offering and it's working. Sure, I can always go and tweak, but I want a bigger challenge. I'm going to start a new niche now. So that's kind of my own internal way of kind of looking at it, is that unfinished business framework. If I feel like, yeah, you know what, I'm still not quite doing as well as I could there, let me learn how to write a book. Let me learn how to do an online course. Let me learn how to package this better. I'll put my attention there and I'll still get that craving quenched of learning and growing through those tweaks before I go on to another niche.
Yeah, very good. So I'm for our audience who don't know you and don't know how to connect with you, how would they find the courses? So whether that's a medium-sized business who needs some support, so on the zero in side of things,
Yep,
or the Solopreneur Playbook
yep.
side of things, what's the best way to
Sure.
track down these courses?
For zero in, if you want to learn more about what I do or any of the courses or books there, the website is zero-in.ca. So zero-in.ca. On the solopreneur side, completely different website because it is a different niche. So what I've got there is my own personal website, dennisgeelen.me, DennisGeelen.me. And there you can see all about the Accidental Solopreneur, the new book that's coming out, the Solopreneur Playbook, the online course. Or if you want to book a coaching call with me, all that information is there on the dennisgeelen.me website.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for coming on the show and sharing some of your journey, as well as some of your expertise that you've built along the journey too. And I think that the 6 steps are going to really help out a lot of entrepreneurs. I truly do believe that, because everything you talked about are the things that I observe as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, it's just it seems very methodical and very much something that everybody could tackle by just following along. So I encourage people to check out the book and check out the course, because I think it could help you get many steps ahead than having to go through the struggles on your own.
Yeah, no, and that's my hope. And methodical is probably a good word. My education is in software engineering, so I've got that problem solving, systems engineering kind of background. I've taken a lot of courses myself where it's a lot more raw motivational. My course is not. It's here's the steps, here's how you do it, here's how you break it down, here's how you apply it to yourself. It's more tactical and it's got the resources, but I'm not there to pump you up. I'm not there to motivate you. I figure if you need that, you're probably not ready to be a solopreneur. Like, if you don't have it in you already, my course is not what's going to take you over the top. I'm giving you the steps. You got to find that motivation somehow. Yeah.
Business, in my opinion, is 80% about the systems and what you were talking about before, the marathon mindset, where It's not something that's going to happen overnight. You got to work at it. But if you're methodical about it, following the system, you will find success as long as you have a product that the market does actually want or need.
Yeah. Agreed.
Bang on. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Dennis. I really appreciate you sharing everything. And for those of you out there who enjoyed this episode, you can check out our archives over at amplifyyourbusiness.ca. And of course, all of our future episodes will be there, as well as on your favorite podcasting platform. And you can search for Amplify Your Business on any of those platforms as well to find us. Until the next episode, I hope everybody has a prosperous day.